Hello again, Ian Stokey with Mastermind Games, back with more Monsterpocalypse, and this time the convention-exclusive version of Sergeant Titanica from the Green Fury faction, Fairskin 09047. So since every convention was pretty much cancelled this year, Privateer Press made a lot of their convention exclusives available online, so that's how I got my hands on her, but I will probably get the general release version eventually. So on this one, I'm going to go with kind of a Desert Storm color scheme, which was a thing when I was a kid. Now, the Green Fury in the first edition was an eco-terrorist group tied loosely to the pterosaurs, and they had a couple of units and were connected to the metamorph monster that the pterosaurs had. But in the current edition, they've dropped the terrorist aspect, which is definitely a good thing, especially since they're a protector's agenda faction. And they have gone from environmentalists using their science to aid the planet with things by, I would assume, removing plastic from the ocean or reforesting deforested areas. I think I just said that in about the most awkward way possible, but switched gears to making weapons to fight the seemingly endless horde of building-sized monsters that have been popping up all over the place in the world of Monsterpocalypse, combining rare plants found around the pterosaurs with the crystals from the Harbinger comet that brought the planet eaters to Earth. And Sergeant Titanica was the first success, and this model was actually a pain to assemble. It's part metal, part resin, and the arms especially did not want to glue on very well at all. Maybe I just had bad luck, but point is, she's assembled. I'm painting her. Now, so obviously she is an homage to 1950s and 60s B movies such as specifically Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. But she seems more of a buffing monster than a brawler, but it does have at least a reasonable amount of offensive capability. She doesn't have a blast attack. So, there's a limited amount of things I can do with so many colors touching each other, so... Starting with the lowest part of the model. And the connecting point where the foot goes onto this scenic base was another one that really fought me. The metal on resin in this is just... it fought me a lot. I usually don't end up having that happen, but I'm just going to call it a fluke. So on the metamorph monster they were once a part of, the metamorphs were basically like Voltron or Power Rangers, starting out as little guys that combined into a big guy for their hyper form. The alpha form were the Green Fury truckers, one of which, Rolling Ranch, carried a really big egg, out of which hatched the actual monster form, Tyrannix. So we'll just see if that shows up again. And the beer truck she's holding, listed as a tasty beverage on the card. And Fire Red 09004. Privateer Press for several years has done a team up with a brewery during one of their big conventions. I think Blackened, but I'm not certain. I never get to go to those myself because of schedules. But team up with a local brewery to make something special for the event and usually do a limited release model to go with it. One year it was a version of Cthulhu chugging away, but usually something War Machine Hordes related. And this is what they did I think last year and just used again this year. Just going to do a bright red truck there. And then I think I can get the flesh on the Empire of the Apes emissary she's holding, who looks less than enthused to being lugged around like a rag doll. Let's see. Templar Blue 09056. Saw a picture of a toy ape just online randomly a couple of days ago that I thought was kind of neat color-wise, so this is going to be kind of a prototype for what I do with Empire of the Apes when I eventually get that faction. I'm not sure when. My focus on gaming right now is Monsterpocalypse, specifically getting buildings built up. Then I'm going to go with the original 6 factions from the first edition, which will be Guard, Pterosaurs, Shadow Sun Syndicate, Lords of Cthulhu, Planet Eaters, and Martian Menace. Kind of building those up before I move on to some of the others. Although I do like the Draken Empire quite a bit, which is coming up, I'm not exactly certain when. As well as, I definitely want to get the, I think it's called Megaton Mashup set that Gallamaxis comes with. Kind of drug my heels a bit in getting War Machine Oblivion, and had to go through quite a bit of trouble because I held off for so long. But it's got a nice solid, so I don't want to repeat that mistake. Just trying to get a nice solid coat. Right now with the fur white and this blue on there, looks a bit like you would expect the Yeti to look like. Which Empire of the Apes basically has a giant Yeti in the form of White Dejan. And right now, I think that's good. I think I missed a spot on her ankle here. There we go. A bit on the leg and the bicep. And I'm going to let that dry for a while before I move on. This is a nice solid start. I want to get my camera to focus a little better. Okay. I'm going to try Blonde Shadow 09256 next. And it's going to go on the little emissary here. I need to be careful not to hit her fingers while I'm doing this. Looks like he's got gauntlets or manacles on. So I'll worry about picking those out later. Right now, I just want to get a decent coat on the fur, and if there are a few patches that end up bare, that is something I can work with. Specifically because what I'm basing this off had a little bit of white in it too. Okay. It's pretty good on the ape. Next, what am I looking for? Let's do her hair next. Now let's do the outfit next. So Banshee brown, kind of a khaki color. I guess it's going to end up more khaki, less Desert Storm, but maybe I can still do what I'm thinking of. Well, it's going to be fine. Being careful not to nick the skin. Well, I color the repurposed military shelter. And something about this is repelling the paint. I don't know why. Let's just keep... Oh boy, it's really bad on the underside here. Let's just keep trying. Might end up having to do additional coats off camera. If I do, fine. And actually, another B-grade movie that comes to mind is Valley of the Giants, I think, or Village of the Giants. But I'll have to check the title. But it was on Mystery Science Theater 3000, my favorite show. And one of the characters was played by Ron Howard, who, based on his age in the movie, must have been fresh off his run on the Andy Griffith show as Opie. So, which was enough for them to make the joke, look out, Opie's on fire. So, this might be a little too close to the skin. You know what? Even if it looks a bit close to the skin tone, this is going to work. This is going to work out. It's going to be about what I want it to be. So... Just my grip a bit, just get that cloth under the, if I can get my paint to play nice, I'll get the cloth anyway. This is one of those army painter brands. It is kind of a substitute for Terran Khaki, because that's what I bought it to be, but again, I'm switching back to the Reaper Master series, so... kind of figured if I have to order paint online anyway, I'll go with the brand I like best. But my initial switch was just because no one was carrying the Master Series locally anymore, not in my area, so... I would try to do the base now, but I don't really have a good place to grip while I do that, so I'm just going to have to let it dry. So, back in a bit, and if I gotta do any touch-ups, I'll take care of that off camera, so back in a minute. Alright. Next, Driftwood Brown 09162. they're not dropping hundreds of frames a second because my camera seems to be acting up. The computer's making sounds. This will be the base coat for her hair. So that Mystery Science Theater 3000 movie I mentioned is Village of the Giants, in which a boy genius played by Ron Howard inadvertently makes a superfood that makes a duck giant, which prompts some rowdy teenagers passing through to steal it and eat it on a dare, making them giant as well, and the rest of the characters dealing with their shenanigans until an antidote is conceived. But it is a bad movie, and it is an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000, so it's definitely worth a laugh, even if it wasn't intended to be funny. I took another look at Titanica's stat card, and she has a little more offensive punch than I thought. She has Penetrator on her Brawl attack in Alpha form, and in Hyper form, gains it on her, Penetrator on her Brawl attack in Alpha. She retains it in Hyper form, picking up Penetrator on her Power attack stat as well, and getting a Brawl attack ability called Combo Strike, which lets her perform a power attack after hitting with a Brawl attack. Okay. Tarnished Steel 09206. So that's not too bad a offensive punch after all. That's what I get for skimming the cards instead of reading them a little more in depth. But okay, so again, Tarnished Steel 09206. I'm getting a bit tired, but I want to see if I can get some of these base coats wrapped up before I get some sleep. Okay. And normally this would be gold, but I feel that silver will stand out better against the lighter khaki. And then go into the truck very carefully. Alright, it's going to take one more session to get all the base coats, so go ahead and get the tanker and parts of the undercarriage here, the bumper, very carefully. Grill. So we'll just go ahead and get the entire bottom and the steel there. Okay. And uniform gray. There's another army painter color. I'm going to go ahead and get the rubble she's standing on. Be careful where her foot connects. And there's going to be no way of gripping this. It won't be awkward one way or another. is still, for some reason, I don't know why, repelling the paint. Don't know if I just didn't get it primed properly or if something else is going on. If I have to do a second coat of this off camera, I will. I just view it as another technical difficulty that needs to be figured out. And that is way too thick, so I'm going to take a little water and just dilute that. Absorb it with a paper towel. Alright, that's got it. Got a little under like my mistake. It's alright, I'll be able to fix that easily. So I'm just straight up doing just desiccated rubble. I don't think desiccated is the right word actually, but I'm worn out enough. I don't care. It's been a long day. Just getting this entire collapsed building need a little more paint. And I'm just going to go ahead and switch to a bigger brush just for the sake of wrapping this up a little more quickly. This size of brush is more suitable for painting on a canvas and miniatures painting, but on larger models it can come in handy. Kind of gripping. There's enough wet on this that I'm just gripping by her helmet and the base with thumb and fingers. It's a little awkward, and I can work with it. I think that's got that, so that's just going to leave the truck tires, the foam, and the belt. So, back in a bit. Alright, last of the base coats. Let's see, where is it? Stormy Gray 09088. And this I'm going to put on both the truck tires and her tank tread belt. There's a detail brush. There's a detail brush. Just because I feel like it, I'll start with the belt first. And then just carefully picking out some tires. And there are a couple in the foam coming out of the cargo here. Right. Just realized I forgot to do the back end of it, so we'll take Tarnished Steel 09206 again, just touch that up real quick. The little dot I put out should be more than enough. Okay. And now Sun Yellow 09008 to start on the alcohol. Okay, take that gray again and just touch up a few tires. Looks a little funny, that's okay. Alright, that's base coats. And I'm going to let that dry completely before I start shading. Oh, and my system decided to drop about 200 frames. Good gravy. Alright, everything's dry, time to shade. I'm going to start with the silver, I think, so Blackened Steel 09205. One part water to 1 part paint to thin it into a wash. And keep your brush nice and wet during this step. Just start with the cuffs on the emissary. And the sergeant's bars. And carefully the grill. Undercarriage. The truck. I think this is going to be the only one I can do right this minute, and that's okay. Hold on to this in about the most awkward way possible right this second. Okay. Gonna do another one. Oh, let's try. So I'm gonna take matte black. Uh-oh, that lid went flat. I'll pick it up later. So with particularly dark colors, you'll need 2 to 3 parts water to 1 part paint. otherwise it'll end up too dark. You want a very ink-like quality. Carefully go along the tank tread belts. Tank tread belt up, boy. The day's barely begun and already I'm losing my ability to speak. Just chalking that up to a day job. Okay. Tires. Let's start with the ones in the foam. So it's kind of a calculated risk here since the silver is still wet. But okay, I think I made that work. You know what, I'm going to try doing the hair as well. I think I can get that one too. So that's going to be Shield Brown 09161. Trying to keep an eye on my computer. It's making funny noises, and unfortunately with the space I have, the only configuration I can do for cables, etc., is to have my computer behind me. Which means I can't react very well to problems. I actually have to physically turn around to see how the focus is going. There's nothing I can do about that. Not until I upgrade to a larger home with a little more room to work with. Which I have no idea when that's going to be. It's just a long-term goal. Okay. And now I'm going to take Fire Orange 09006 and use that to shade the fur on the ape. Kind of a reverse King Kong thing going on here, which I'm sure is what they were going for when they decided to put him in there. I think this will work and give me approximately the shade I'm going for when I highlight him. And I'm basing this off a picture of some museum quality toy I stumbled across online that I thought was kind of neat, so. Yeah, I think this is getting me pretty close to what I want. Okay. So not too bad. Maybe a little more right here next to the chest and the armpit there. And that's pretty good. I'm going to let that dry for now and move on a little bit. Oh boy, I've started dropping friends again, but I think it's a pretty good start. Okay. Vampire Red. This is a army painter color I'm phasing out. Just need a little bit of it for the truck. Again, thinning 1 part water to 1 part paint. Just gonna go over the cab here. Now, the windows I will do as a lighting effect. prep that after this is dry when I do the work on the next layers of shading. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the foam. So I'm going to take Blonde Shadow 09256 and see if that works for it. I think it might. Of course, I never really painted flowing alcohol before, and I don't really drink outside of special occasions like weddings and major family gatherings, so don't have a whole lot of personal reference to that. I think this will work reasonably well. And I don't care that this is getting on the tires that are in the foam because they're in the foam. I get saturated with this stuff. And then add a little more, keep my brush nice and wet. Being careful as I get closer to the hair. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. I do want a nice solid coverage here. I think that's got it pretty good. And then, where is it? Khaki Shadow 09121. This one's almost empty, but I do have a spare on hand. These make the loveliest, full sarcasm implied sounds when they're almost empty. Oh, got in the wrong paint for a second there. Computer's making bad sounds. I'm not dropping any frames yet, but something I do have to keep an eye on. The drying time and shading takes the longest to dry is going to be contingent on heat and humidity. Today's a pretty dry and so far a pretty warm day. It is pretty early in the morning as I do this, so it might not be that long. But most of what's off camera is just literally waiting on paint to dry, so that's really the only thing that you're generally missing. I'll make sure I get the underside here because it really fought me during the base coat step. you see it's really flowing into the wrinkles in the top here. And that's exactly what I want. It'll make them look darker. And then when I highlight and go over the raised areas, it'll make those look brighter. Be real careful about the underside. I'd rather not get this on the face if I can avoid it. Just flow in and around. It gets in between the chevrons on the sergeant's markings, and that's fine. I'm not even sure if I'm using that word properly, if that's the right word for what I'm thinking, but a little bit of that got in the hair, so I'm just going to dry out the brush and absorb some of it. Alright, let's see here. Yeah. Next I'm going to shade the skin and prep the lighting effects on the truck. And when that dries, I can do the lighting effects, the building on the base, and the emissary's flesh. So, back in a minute. Alright. Prep some lighting effects next. Matte white, just a little bit of this. Well, I should just say lighting effect because it's only going to go on the windshield. Using just enough water to thin the paint, keeping the brush moist but not overly wet. Just filling that in with matte white. Okay. And now, first I'm going to switch to a bigger brush. Then take Fair Shadow 09046. Thin that out. A little bubbling right there. Just go over the skin. Let that flow around where it wants to. Making sure I get it into the recesses like the armpit. To exercise some caution as our hand comes closer to the objects like the truck. On the other side of the emissary. Let's see here. Okay. Keeping the brush wet during all of this. Okay. The right leg first. Making sure I get her toes, and I'm not concerned too much about getting it on the base because that'll be shaded in a much darker color. Make sure I get this up in these tears on the left. Not too concerned about getting the very bottom of the foot, but because the heel's off the ground, I want to make certain I get the part that is. Alright, I'll let that dry completely, and then I can wrap up the shading in a bit here. Oh, that got into the tank treads, so just take a paper towel and absorb that. I'll have to touch up the shading on that a bit, but that's alright. Okay, let it dry and move on. Alright, things are dry enough to work with. So first I'm going to paint the eyes, or start on that, with matte white now that the skin is dry on the face. Still a little wet on the left foot at the bottom there, but I'm not going to be going anywhere near that. Where's my detail? There's my detail brush. Again, using just enough water to thin the paint. I think I'll try doing colored eyes because these are nice and big here. Fill in the sclera, the whites. It's got them. Now I'm going to take matte black again. Whoop. Just a tiny dot. I'm going to thin this the same way I would for a lighting effect. Well, actually, the same way for shading, as it's 2 to 3 parts water, 1 part paint. And with that in mind, I'm just going to touch up this tank tread here. Just let that flow into the windows on the truck cab. Might be a little dark on the side there. We'll soak some of that up. A little more on the front. The key with a lighting effect is for some of the white to show through. It's pretty good. Alright, so I need to shade now the emissary's flesh and the base. So Breonne Blue 09055. That one's clogged up, so paper clip down the nozzle. That little bit is plenty for what I need to do. Thin it into a wash. And dot over the face, chest, a little bit on her thumb there, that's alright. Belly, hands. Feet. Okay. Now I'm clean off the brush, switch to a bigger one. Let's see here, that one. And Stormy Gray 09088. This is potentially going to get just a little bit awkward. Thin that out, 1 part water to 1 part paint. Just let that flow around. So you see some of the shade from the foot is still showing, but that's going to be okay because it'll come out when I highlight. Keeping the brush nice and wet during this step. Seems to have some of the paint right there. I don't know how it got there, but it'll come out when I highlight. Not as much detail as I usually do for a building, but it's not much of a building anymore. Just going all over all of this. Okay, let all that completely dry, then I can finish the eyes and start highlighting. Okay, time to highlight in detail. I'm going to start with Woodstain Brown 09160 and just color in her eyes. Detail brush now off camera. I kind of forgot about the emissary's face here, so I did his eyes and teeth in matte white and took a little vampire red and put that in the mouth. Okay. It's gonna need a second, but matte black. And for these, I'm just using enough detail to, or enough water to thin the paint, so just a tiny, tiny bit. Carefully dot in the pupils here. That's way too small to really see colored eyes, but and colored eyes are something I'm struggling with, but tiny dot in the center is not going to stick out too much, but at least I know it's there. Now, switching to a dry brushing technique, I'm going to start with Ashen Blue 09057. Start with the hapless little emissary. Ragged feather brush, something along the lines of this. No water, straight paint only, and we're going to rub most of it out on the paper towel until it looks like there's nothing left. And lightly dust. And I kind of picture this emissary trying to have a serious conversation with the sergeant here. and just driving her nuts, kind of causing her to want to drink, and then seeing some threat in the distance. Now I'm going to take Blonde Hair 09257. Yeah, I need to do this now. Gonna be jumping the gun a bit, but it's gonna be the highlight for the emissary's fur. And I'm focusing on the most readily visible surfaces. Yeah, that gets it pretty close to the source of my inspiration. And I'm also going to use this to highlight Titanica's hair, going against the ridges, which will help catch the paint and make those stand out while keeping the recessed areas dark. Just lightly dusting. Not too bad at all. Fair highlights 09048 now. This is going to be one of the more dominant colors. Just going to pick out the right brush for the job. I have several that are suitable for this. Not that one. This one. Especially when I get the bridge of the nose and the cheeks here, as well as the collarbone. That's a bit thick. I can brush some of the excess off with my thumb. This dries very fast, almost instantly, so I don't have to wait for paint to dry, but that also means there's a very limited amount of time to fix any mistakes you might make. Getting a little bit on the waist here where the khaki shadow got a little out of hand. And again, my focus is on the most readily visible areas. I definitely want to go across the toes. Make sure I get the angle, which is highlighted, which is sculpted in. Again, a little extra paint here where the khaki shading got a little out of hand. That's good. Trying to do a way of cleaning my brushes. It's kind of funky. Next, khaki highlight 09123. Looks like I've dropped about 51 frames during all of this. That's better than I've been getting on a lot of these, but still something I need to improve. truck by mistake, but that'll be alright. It's going to be it should be okay. I'm trying to go against all these wrinkles to catch the paint and really pop those. Okay, that's pretty good. On the top and then the helmet. I suppose it's not quite a desert storm, but it still works, I feel. I'm just about done here. Let's do Stormy Gray 09088 and do the tank tread belt and the truck tires. No, that was the wrong one. I need uniform gray, not Stormy. I just wasted a little paint there. Got mixed up. Smaller one. Oh, I got it mixed into some... okay, I see what I did. Then just white dusting on those tires. More focus on the ones I can easily see. Let's do the steel next. So True Silver 09207. Just about done with this. If I get a grip on a brush, it'll do the job. Let's switch sides here. That and the tanker is going to get the most attention. Before I forget, let's just get the emissary's cuffs here. Okay, haven't dropped any more frames, so that's good, even though my system's making funny noises. Alright, Phoenix Red 09005. Just a little bit for the cab of the truck. Whoop, and I just wound up dropping the brush. It'll do the job, so I got another one. There's a nice bright red. And that's going to leave matte white. Can use this to highlight the foam coming out of the truck there. Not too bad. Not too bad, considering it's my first time trying to paint foaming beer. And then, yeah, Misty Gray 09090. Get the base. I think this is dry, but it was kind of ambiguous, is what I'll say. This one. Trying to go against these raised areas, or the angles, sorry, using the wrong terminology, whenever possible. Being very careful not to nick the skin at this point. Alright, that's it for the painting. Need to let this dry for a few minutes. Then I can glue to the base and wrap this up. Alright, it's had time to dry, so I'm going to glue to the base now. I like to keep these in the protective plastic wrap until the last minute. Get that out of there. Now, thick cyanoacrylate super glue. Put a little on the foot and get some on the base. That'll be enough. I think I like it like that, so I'll hold that for about 20 seconds. Not quite there yet. This one's going to fight me a little. So, let's try that again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. Now it's got it's going to set for a little longer, but all that's left is to varnish it to seal the paint job, and that is it. Convention exclusive Sergeant Titanica from the Green Fury faction of Monsterpocalypse. That's it for Protector's monsters. I have one more Destroyer coming up next, so until then, I am Ian Stuckey with Mastermind Games, signing out.